Here we go, if I don't start a coughing fit. Okay, here's dictus. These words said per territus. So, picking up from yesterday, he was very terrified and ad gredior. I made a movement forward to temptare, to test formam. See if he had wax for ears and eyes. Some readings have fortuna. Anyway, it means the same sort of thing. So, an ablative absolute, injecta menu. Having moved my hand, injected my hand, I prehendoed, I grabbed hold of my nasum, my nose, after this movement with his hand, and sequitur. Here's a nasum, his nose followed off with his hand, so it came off. And I pertractoed, I handled my ores, my ears, and they ruined, and they rushed off, they fell off. Ac and dum, I'll take that as then, or a while maybe we'll take it as. So directus digitus, with their fingers extended, and detortus nutibus, so their nodding was detorting, twisting. So if they were nodding, it would be the heads were nodding. Denotor, looks passive. I was pointed out, I was noted from all of the people around, the people whose presence he was in. So they're pointing with their fingers and they're twisting their nodding heads. And dum again. So while risus' laughter, it bulleted, it bubbled up. So everyone was pointing him out, nodding their heads, and now they're laughing. And interpeds between their feet, of the circumstantium, of those standing around in the present participle, with a frigido sudor, with a cold sweat, I evaded. Defluencing is another present participle, so I flowed between the feet of the people standing around. And to finish off 30, nec postea, so, and not afterwards, or neither afterwards, debilis, debilitated, and sic thus ridiculous, a laughing stock. Potuit, was I able, redere, to return, we're talking about me, him, to his la patria, to his fatherland, and the la would be his household gods. So debilitated and such a laughing stock, not able to return to where I came from. Said, but with capillus, and it would take diectus, with capillus diectus, with my hair loose, flying low, laterum would mean over his sides, hinc inde, hinc would be from then on, inde then, so with my hair then on, from that time on, flowing down over my sides of his face, I'm guessing, where his ears would be. I have celavied, I have covered up the vulnera, the wounds, aureum of my ears. Yep, so his hair's going over the side to cover his ears. And with a lint to low isto, and with this little bit of linen, here's a verb, I've had glutenode, having glued, looks like this linen here, to cover the dedecus, this is the dishonour or the ugliness, naso of his nose. Presse means, it's pressed up there. Here, I have obtexide, I've covered up this his nose and its ugliness, rather decenter, so it looks a bit more fitting, you might want to say. 31, cum primum. So as soon as theliperon, okay, it's like 6 weeks since I read the last bit, and 6 weeks before that, so I jump around that much. This is the person who was talking. So theliperon was the one. As soon as this person had positted, placed down, or finished hanc fabulum, this story, the compotors, the fellow drinkers, madide, soaked or drunken in wine, vino, they versum, they again integrant from afresh, started their cacacinum, which is their cackling and laughter. Dumque, and while postulant, they were demanding bibere to drink. Now this is a very old translation where it's got the god of Rizu, god of laughter here. I'll go more with the Loeb version, which has, what have we got here? Solitarius. Okay, we'll go with that. And so while they were drinking their drinks solitarily, the other way would have their accustomed drink, Barina, the chick, she thus sic ad me inquit. She spoke to me. It said solemnness, which we will take as a solemn dies. Solemn day from the primus cunabulus. This is from the first cradle days or the infancy days. Conditus huis urbis. From the city was founded. Advenant, this day will come, this solemn day will come, Crastinus, tomorrow. And from its infancy days from when the city had been Conditus founded. Quo Dio, in which day, soli, that's plural, we alone, mortalium sanctissimus diem, so yeah, we'll take that as we alone of mortals, have a sanctissimum God rhisum, which we saw up here for some reason earlier in this other translation. So this is the most sacred God of laughter, and we propitimus him. We do our day of worship, ritu, in the rites or the way of, with hilario, which is jocularity, and gordalia, type of rejoicing. So, I don't know which is the best translation, but I'll go with the lobe here. Anyway, that's what's happening. There was some drinking, some laughing. Birna talks, Stoyman says tomorrow's going to be a day where we worship from the founding of our city for the sacred god of laughter. Hunk, that's pronoun. So, to a presentia, your presence, efficis, looks like you shall make with your presence or by your presence. Nobis for us, hunk, looks like this day will be more gratiorem, more pleasant, that's a comparative. Atqui and, utinem, would that, takes a subjunctive usually. Something, aliquid, de proprio lepore, from your own charmingness. Latificum, which is bearing happiness. Will you communascaris, blah blah blah. Will you invent or create something using your inborn charm that will something happy? So we'll take aliquid with that. To in the honorandering of our dio, that's a gerund, so that we can something you can invent to help honour our God. Magus is a comparative, so this quo is an ut, so that more and plenius, so more and greater or fuller, we can litimus. It's not to do with litigation, it's to do with honouring again and pleasing. Tanto numeni, such a god. This would be their god rhisum, god of laughter again. So I'll have a daily dictionary word, the lito, make an offering, especially because or in order to receive favourable omens. It can also mean I obtain good omens or I promise good omens. To make atonement to, this is the more litigation side of things, to make atonement for, and to devote and consecrate. So it's all about the God here. And inquam, I said, bene, well and good, and fiat, it shall be done, ut ubs, as you bid, or order. And valam, taking the infinitive, and I want to reperere, to find, by Hercules, aliquam materium, some material, quam which, to Dias Tantus, such a god, so which such a god can endure it or put on, which is affluenta. And there is a footnote about this in the lobe. God's statues were often dressed on holidays. Latin also suggests some raw material which so mighty a god could turn into an extravaganza. Post hac, after these things, monitu by the advice or warning of mere familiar, is his household slave or his attendant, qui who ad monobat, we have monitu and ad monobat, a verb form and a noun form, and he was warning me of the night, or what time of night. And so now already, ipsi myself, I was crapula distentus, so I was bloated and distented with crapula, which is a word for drunk, can also mean hangover, but he would be drunk at this stage. So adverb, protonus, immediately I exsurged, I got up, and looks like Baharinia Appellata, having said words to Baharinia, to her name, I propere hastily, with titubante vestigo, with tottering footsteps I capesso, took myself off domo ituernem, which would mean going home to the place where he's staying at. Dom ituernem's a noun, meaning the return home. So 32 now. Said cum prom, so when first Vardamus we arrived at or were walking, actually look the first Platium. So when we reached the first Platium, Platia is sometimes the name of the street, but it's also the square stones used to make the streets. So it looks like they weren't far into their journey, and with a vento repentino, with a sudden wind had arisen, looks like which extinguished the lumen, the light with which we were striving with, relying on. Okay, so sudden wind blew out the lamp, so that Vix scarcely the caligni in the darkness of the improvida noctis, unforeseen bit of the night or something you might want to say, or it goes against providence of the night, some weird translation you might want to use. Anyway, liberati Vix, so we scarcely freed ourselves from this darkness of this unforeseen thing happening in the night, and with digitus pedum detunsus, so detunsus means bruised or bashed, digitus would be our toes because it's the digits of our feet, so we've bruised our toes up against the lapides. These are the stones, used to be the stones of the street. Defessi, meaning we were very tired, and we rediramus, and we returned to the hospitium, the house where they were staying. Dumqui, and while, it's probably the fourth dumb we've seen today, Yam now proximus, we're getting close to the house of where they were staying, the hospitium, and they were junctum, they were joined, probably lying on each other since they were drunk as skunks, and okay, look, tres quidem, a certain three men, I'm guessing, vegetae, so they were energetic, and vastulas corporibusses with vast bodies, huge bodies, fores nostras at our door, ex summus viribus, with the utmost strength, were inruentings, they were rushing against the door, and ne quidem, and not even nostra praesenti, not even our presence, conterritied them, terrified them a tantilum, a little bit. Said Magus, but more, and with emulation, with rivalry of the men, they were insultantings, they were bursting forwards again rather frequently, cribrius, which is a comparative. So that nobis, that for us, and to me potissimum, and me especially, or more preferably, and non in merito, not undeservedly, esse, this comes from Viderenter, it seemed that, taking the infinitive, that these were latrones, bandits, and quidam, indeed, most savissimi, superlative, and very savage ones. Statim, deniqui, so immediately, in short you might want to say, usually it's used for saying finally, but immediately in short, the gladium, which was the short swords they were, quem, which was contectum, covered up in veste mea, in my vest, my clothing, which I was extularaming, which I was bearing to hos usus for such a use, I ad ripioed, I ripped it out, liberum, free from the sinew, from its fold, or its pocket, or whatever you want to call it. Nec cunctatus, neither was there a delay, and in volo, I flew into the medios latrans, the middle of the bandits, and singulus, one at a time, as quemque conluctum, as each one was wrestling or fighting with me, I offenderammed, one of my favourite words, so I struck them, and I demergoed altissime as deeply as possible. This would be Gladius. So he sunk his sword in as deep as quoad, until tandem at last, before ipse vestia mea, before my footsteps, before, in front of my feet, with vast and crevice and frequent perforations, in vulneribus, as in wounds, their spiritus forth declension, e flavorited, their life spirit flowed out of them, from such frequent and vast vulneribusses. Sic proliatus, thus having fought, am now tumulto ea. By this tumult, this fight, Photidus was suscitata. She was up and breathing, and the Oedipus, the house was open, and this would be himself, his Anne Helling, he's breathing, and Perlutus, thoroughly washed in a sudor and sweat. I in repoed, I crept in, and immediately would put in as much as, or in the same way as a pugna, which is a fight of trium latronum, having fought 3 bandits in vicem in turn. I am fatigued. It's now in the accusative. As in the Cadus Geryones, this is some giant that Hercules fought that had 3 heads or 3 bodies. Tradidi, I was given over to somno and simul at the same time lector. I was given over to sleep in the bed at the same time. Okay.